It is 9 o'clock a.m. on the west coast of Canada, so we are going to kick off the Vancouver Power BI Modern Excel user group for, man, is it February already of 2026? I can't believe it. So welcome everyone. Obviously, we've got the humble MVP is going to be joining us in just a little bit here. But I'm just going to run through and do my normal on my slides for today to start everything off. Big thanks to the sponsors that make all of this stuff happen. SkillWave is my training company where we teach you how to be awesome at Excel and Power BI. Excel Guru is the parent company of SkillWave and also the distributor and creator of Monkey Tools, which is my Excel add-in to help you build better Excel solutions faster. Our next meetups that we have coming up in a couple of weeks, pleased to be welcoming my friend Christian Angel is going to be coming back to give us a nice little session on getting crafty with Power Query custom functions in Power BI. So that's going to be a great session. Looking forward to that. Always enjoy having Christian on the show. And then in a couple of weeks, months from now, we've got Ann Walsh who's going to be coming back to talk about things that she's learned from 25 years in the training business. So some great topics coming up here. Don't forget the RSVPs are open and we hope to see you there. Just a quick note on the Monkey Tools side of things. We do have a free Monkey Tools using Monkey Tools course available at SkillWave, completely free. Gives you an idea of what this amazing add-in will do, what's free, what's not, all those kind of good things. You can register for it at the URL that you see at the top there. Should also mention that all of these slides have already been PDF'd and uploaded to the Meetup site. So if you're looking for the URLs, you can grab them there if I run a little bit too quickly for you here. We have a relatively new product in the SkillWave shop. You may have seen some social media on these things here where I talk about some of the things that we're actually solving in these. This is my Ask Anything sessions. They happen twice per month. It's a live Teams call where you can submit your questions in advance. And I just had one of these yesterday and some great questions come through from complex to things that we actually solved really easily. But it's a great place to go and actually just have an expert look at the stuff that you're doing, get some ideas as to what to do. And the big distinction on this one between this and some of those AI engines that we end up talking about, and I get this all the time, is, yeah, ChatGPT told me this, but it didn't work. And I'll go back and look at it and say, that's because there's some things here you probably don't want to do this way. So it gives you a little bit of more human interface as to what's going on from an expert's perspective. So if you're interested, you can definitely check that out at SkillWave. The Ask Anything subscription is included in my Excel Fundamentals Academy. If you or somebody on your team is looking at boning up on your Excel skills, going from the beginner level to a solid intermediate, we learn about pivot tables, data visualization, Power Query, your formula reviews, things like that. You should definitely check out this product here. Again, comes with access for an entire year to the Ask Anything sessions to back end your learning. So you actually get not only a good course, but you also get support from your instructor, a real live human, as you go through this stuff as well. If you already passed the fundamental stage, we also, of course, have my premier training product, the Self-Service BI Academy, where we teach you Power Query, dimensional modeling, DAX, Power BI, and give you access to all kinds of crazy stuff that I've got, including Monkey Tools, my books, and the Ask Anything section as well. This is a great program that a lot of people really love, and I hope that you'll check it out and at some point add it to your learning toolkit. I'm super proud of what's going on inside of this one here. This meetup, as all meetups are recorded. It will be hosted on the SkillWave YouTube channel. If you're already subscribed, you'll get a notification on that when it is posted. And if not, we do post on our meetup site to let you know when the video is actually live. And that should be up within 24 hours after the session here is done. Last or penultimate slide that I've got here. If you would like to come and speak to our meetup group, we would love to have you here. Just fill out the little form we have to get in touch with us here, and we will get you booked on our show. We're always interested in seeing the cool things that people are doing with Excel, with Power BI, or anything in the Power Platform stack. Is always of interest to our groups here. So if you want to get some speaking experience and have some fun, come talk to us. We'd love to have you on our show. And on that note, it's time, Giles. I'm ready to exit stage left and have you come on and give us an amazing presentation and try and convince me why I actually want to use AI, which is going to be a tough sell for you, but let's see if we can do it.
Yeah, I don't think I'm quite in the camp of trying to convince everyone to use AI, but I'm definitely going to share some of my experiences. So, okay, hello, everybody. I'm going to start, hopefully, by successfully sharing my screen. Good stuff. All right, so my topic today, the question I set almost for myself, was financial modeling with AI. Is it ready? And how can we use it? Before we get into that, For anyone that doesn't know me, I'm co-founder of Full Stack Modeler. It's a trading company focused on sort of Excel, financial modeling, and data viz. I'm co-founder, one of an amazing team of people, team of volunteers that have set up the Excel UK Championship. And I am going to plug this for a minute. So if anybody doesn't know about Excel esports, this is the most fun you can have as an Excel person anywhere. So we run the UK chapter. You don't have to be a resident in the UK. I've been promised at least one person in this meeting is going to put a link in the chat. You can sign up for the season, amazing cases that we're putting together. And honestly, it's just such an innovative kind of fun way to really master Excel and get up to speed with sort of problem solving and functions and things like that. So have a look. It's well worth your time. I'm also a commentator and a competitor in the World Championships. I'm on some podcasts. We've had Ken on at least once now, I think maybe twice. We should probably get you back on again soon, Ken. And for those of you that don't know, sometimes I prance around in a fur coat, and I can't confirm this completely, but I might have video evidence that Ken has at some stage in the last 12 months been caught dancing in one of my fur coats. If I did have that, I'd have to be paid enormous sums to release it. I'm open to that.
I think the word dancing is a little bit liberal for what was actually happening there, to be fair.
Fair point. Okay, so 2 questions. Financial modeling with AI. Is it ready? How can we use it? I'll give you my end answers up front because they're both really annoying. Is it ready? It depends. How can we use it? Lots of different ways. So I'll spend the next 40 minutes kind of digging into that in a little bit more detail. I'd actually like to start by taking sort of 10 minutes to take a huge step back and talk more broadly about AI. And before I even do that, I actually want to try and get a sense of where your heads are at. So please take part if you can. If you can either go to slido.com and enter in that code or just use the QR code. I'm going to ask you all 3 questions. I did this at the Bristol Excel meetup group a few weeks ago, and I'm really intrigued to see whether we get similar answers. Okay, so if you go there, it won't say anything until I move over slides. Hopefully now you can start putting in your answers. The QR code is still in the top left. How often do you use AI consciously, deliberately, not just, because you're in an algorithm somewhere? Okay, wow. Okay, multiple times a day, 80%. I'm going to leave it for another 10 or 15 seconds. Okay, put your answers in if you can. 75% multiple times a day. I mean, interesting that almost everybody is using it at least daily. Okay, next question. How do you feel about AI in general, ranging from extremely worried to I absolutely love it? Let's give this 20 seconds. Slightly concerned. No, nobody's not bothered. Okay, slightly concerned is winning at the moment. Okay, 5 more seconds. Last question. Honestly, if I were to ask you to take over the screen right now and technically describe the difference between an LLM, an agent, and Copilot, what one word would describe how you feel? Confident. Who's that? Is that Faye? Lost. Annoyed came up in Bristol as well. Okay, worried, annoyed, learning, interested, confused. 10 more seconds. Anyone else want to share a word? Okay. Okay. So in general, that was kind of what we got in Bristol. Everybody's using it. I think we're all quite concerned. And not that many of us know technically kind of how it works in the background. I think we're in a really interesting phase at the moment where on the one hand, on the right-hand side, you've got companies now. We see this a lot with our kind of B2B interactions. Companies are investing money in AI. And you've got management teams at companies looking at everybody else and saying, right, we've invested, go and use it. Like we need to see an ROI, go and use it, make our lives easier, save us money, get us a bigger return, go. So there's pressure from companies on everybody else to go and use AI. And then you've got everybody else, the workers, us, going, cool, how do you use it? Like, tell me what I'm supposed to be doing with it and I'll use it. But what is it? How do I use it? Where am I supposed to be like leveraging these tools to add value? And in the middle, in places like LinkedIn, which is just the hub, the worldwide hub of good thought leadership, you've got the message shared that is AI is going to solve all of your problems. And then around that, you've got very serious concerns about security, data security, governance. What licenses do we need to use this properly? What permissions do I need to have set up? And real conversations about sort of ethics and the regulation of AI. And I think for many people, you might recognize some of these questions. This is just a collection of questions I think we all ask ourselves. And I appreciate some people will genuinely be AI experts. They do exist and they've been working in this space for decades. But for most people, these are the questions we ask ourselves. What are these tools? What is an LLM? What is Copilot technically? And all the way around, if you follow that to the top left, I don't think the last two questions are facetious. Like am I stupid? I already felt stupid from an Excel perspective, and I'm, supposed to be good at this stuff because there's just so much new stuff to keep up with. I haven't learned regex. I haven't learned Python in Excel. And whilst I was kind of trying to get through my to-do list on that, AI's popped up. And now I think everybody's looking at it going, oh God, I've got to get up to speed with this as well. So if you ask yourself these questions, if they're familiar to you, I don't think you're alone. And, we're all kind of going through this journey together. So I wanted to start very quickly with a bit of kind of high level context. And again, this is just stuff that I'm starting to learn myself. I'm certainly not coming at this from, an area of expertise. I think there are layers to this. And the most important thing is to say that AI has been around for decades. We're all getting so excited now about generative AI. And if you're in Microsoft world anyway, you are forced to deal with Copilot, whether you like it or not. But AI has been around for a very long time. So if we start at the top of the onion, the layers of the onion, AI has been around really as a term since the 50s. We've had the Turing test going around, this idea that, a machine can simulate human intelligence to the point where it's actually indistinguishable. And then within the kind of wider layer of AI, we have a sub-layer called machine learning. And this is the idea that machines could essentially be fed data and look at it and analyze it and identify patterns and give us some sort of useful output. And machine learning has been around for decades as well. And we will all interact with some form of machine doing these machine learning processes when we use things like Netflix or TikTok, whatever it is. So we experience this on a daily basis anyway. And there have been high profile examples of machine learning successes. I think one of the most prevalent ones was Gary Kasparov, the chess grandmaster, being beaten in the 90s by Deep Blue. And then a sub-layer within machine learning, more recently, is this concept of deep learning, where we have essentially what are called neural networks. It's supposed to, in some way, replicate the way a human brain works. And this is more sophisticated processing, more sophisticated kind of data analysis and pattern recognition, giving us better outputs. And there's more layers to this. So I pop the Copilot icon in the bottom right that you'll all be very familiar with if you use Microsoft. We're now getting into the layer of generative AI. So these tools are no longer just kind of giving us insights or, some sort of output that is based on the data. It can actually generate things. It can create new assets for us. And I think this really went nuts when ChatGPT launched in 2022 publicly. There's a really interesting visual somewhere that looks at the amount of time it took for large companies to reach 1 million active followers. Netflix was a few years, I think. Instagram, a number of months. ChatGPT had 1 million active users in 5 days and 100 million in 60 days. So pretty mind-blowing how fast we all kind of took notice of this. That's not the end of the onion. So within generative AI, if you think about what you're doing when you use something like Copilot, one form of Copilot in the Microsoft ecosystem, or if you use the Claude, the chat interface, these are the application layers that allow us to interact with the machine. And the underlying machine is the large language model, the term that we've heard flying around so much. And I'm going to dig into that a little bit more as well. But for me, I found this context, just stepping back and thinking of the layers of the onion, quite useful. when we're dealing with something like Copilot, which will hopefully, have agent and Copilot in Excel very soon, we're dealing with this application layer within a subset, within a subset, within a subset, within another subset of what is broadly called AI. I wanted to share some things I have learned recently that I think are really interesting. Number one, words are really important in this space, and they can be really confusing. So if we take that term, large language model, we see it being used everywhere. What is it talking about? Well, it's large in terms of the sort of parameters, mainly the kind of knobs and variables that operate under the hood. It's a language-based model. So there are other types of machine learning models. This is one that is focused on analyzing language. And it is a model. And for me, what I try and remember there is like, this is a pre-built thing. This is something that it's like when you use ChatGPT 5.2 or whatever, it's like getting an Amazon delivery and that machine arrives at your door and that's it. And the confusing bit for me is when you actually look under the hood of this, there's no language at all. So when you prompt something about a pretty cat you like, the machine has no idea that the word cat refers to a living, cute little animal. It's converted into numbers and dimensions and weightings against other numbers. So I think that's quite interesting and confusing. Large language models actually just deal with numbers. Machine learning, another thing that I find interesting and confusing. Machine learning, the idea that these machines learn from you and that they have memory. Quite often you see this in ChatGPT or Claude and other tools. You could ask it to remember things. And yet the reality is it doesn't really have memory. So you can have it kind of add extra context if you want it to kind of send more with each prompt. There's no real concept of memory. And we had Tim Jacks, who's the founder of Taglo, on the Mod Squad podcast recently. And I thought he used a really nice analogy. He admitted it's not perfect, but the way he thinks or describes LLMs is like an old style pasta machine where, whenever you prompt in a chat, in a specific chat window, you are feeding pasta, uncut pasta through your machine, which is the LLM. You turn the wheel, you get something out the back end. Doesn't matter what you do with the pasta, you're not changing the machine. It just does the same thing every time and you get your outputs based on your inputs. That's where the analogy isn't perfect because you can get slightly different outputs. So each prompt feeds the pasta through. And again, what I found really interesting was when you're kind of 20 prompts deep in a chat, you add your 21st prompt. There's no memory concept here. Every time you send that next prompt, every one of your 21 prompts in that chat is going back through the machine to get you to the next answer. It's why you run out of context and it slows down when your chats get really long. And the last one I thought was interesting, which Ken will enjoy, was I'm not sure Microsoft knows exactly what the plan is here, and it keeps confusing things left, right, and center, not least just with some of the terminology. There's a broad terminology about agents in AI world, and this is the idea that there's some sort of autonomy with a tool that can do a number of things for you. You don't literally have to specifically prompt it to do everything in a sequence. But in Microsoft world, an agent is a product. And these are sort of pre-packaged tools that can do certain things. But they're not strictly agents in the broader sense. So I wanted to share that because I just thought that was some interesting points. And I don't know that everybody actually knows this. I didn't know this 3 months ago, but I've been asking lots of stupid questions of intelligent people on podcasts for a while to get there. So I wanted to pivot now over to AI and financial modeling. I appreciate not everybody's going to be a financial modeler. I don't actually think anything I share necessarily is isolated to financial modeling. And I will also say my position's changed very recently. I've been using Claude a lot, and I've been using Claude's add-in in Excel, which is in beta mode. And it has blown my mind, to be honest. It's not perfect. It's far from being perfect, but it's out of every tool we tested, including Microsoft's agent in the web, for me, this has been an absolute game changer. So if you think about like a typical modeling project, again, it doesn't have to be financial modeling. You don't start with the build process. This is a pretty kind of textbook life cycle. I'm calling it the spreadsheet life cycle. You'll see it called other things. When you work on a financial modeling project or a project that involves the creation of a financial model, you don't start with the build. There's a scoping phase, which should be pretty significant. who's doing what, who approves what is the model going to do, what questions is it going to answer, what's it not going to answer. That can take a lot of time. You've also got the specification stage. So actually, like, what are we building? Like, what are the outputs of the model? What's the inputs? What's the data? You've got a planning phase where you as the modeler or the modeling team are literally kind of trying to project manage out, like, what are we going to be doing? How are we going to approach this model build? You would review a model afterwards, and eventually it would go live. It might be used once. It might be used many, many times, depending on the model. And the question I have for you, you can put it in the chat if you can. Where do you think all the attention and the hype has been focused for large language models in this life cycle? Can I see the chat? I'll wait until... Yes. Build. The area with the least language is the area that everybody has immediately got very, very excited about. And one of my main kind of asks for anybody watching is just start thinking about all the other areas that AI could genuinely add value to you, because I think we are getting to the point where it can add huge value. But the trickiest one to this day is still the model build. To prove this, I'm going to do something that I never do, which could go wrong. I'm not going to just do one live test of using AI. I'm going to do 3 at the same time, and we'll see how that goes. So I'll talk you through them. Genuinely, I never do this. I always have kind of pre-recorded little mini clips, but I thought I'd step out of my comfort zone for you. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to feed into Claude, the app Claude, not in Excel, a version of what I would call a model map. So in financial modeling worlds, this is... You normally get a team of modelers on a whiteboard going, we've got this kind of module here and it's going to feed in here and there's data here and these are the outputs. Ironically, I used AI to generate the model map, which is why it looks relatively neat. But I just said, look, give me a model map, throw in a load of other notes, and let's see what we end up with. And I thought it did a pretty good job. So the first thing I'm going to do, and I'm just going to set these all up, and then I'll carry on the talk and we'll come back at the end and see how it's done. I'm going to set it up with a project that I've set up. So this is my modeling expert assistant. And I'm going to say, take this model map, Vancouver meetup. Let's go model map whiteboard. Okay. And I have a prompt that I will put in, basically saying, take the picture of this map, turn it into some sort of nice exec summary, something that I could share with senior stakeholders straight away. Okay, so I'm going to set that off on its task. The second thing I'm going to do, hopefully you can hear me when I turn up from my microphone. The second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get Claude in Excel to have a go at solving an entry-level esports battle. Okay, so this is an entry-level one that a lot of people use for training. If you've never seen an esports case before, you've got 7 levels of questions that ask you to do something. So for example, you've got, let's go down here. How many times does the requested character appear in the text string? I go up here, you've got, return the column number for this reference. So the column letter is E, the number is 5, and so on and so forth. They get harder and harder. So I've set up a prompt already that's just saying, look, I want you to analyze this case tab, answer all the questions and come back. If it gets them right, you'll see a little green tick in here. So I'm going to set that one off running. And then the third one is harder. So this is an AFM level, Financial Modeling Institute, Advanced Financial Modeling starting case. You're given 3 years of actuals data. And what I'm asking Claude in Excel to do is build a 5-year annual forecast, make reasonable assumptions, make it follow best practice, do it in the same model, go. Now, I don't think it's going to be perfect, but you might be surprised how well this does. Famous last words, touch wood, it won't do what I've seen it do before. Now I've said that. So that's 3 things I have just set AI off on whilst I carry on this talk. All right, so while it's doing that, I want to talk a little bit about the mod squad. So this is what I've been working on with Paul Barnhurst, the FP&A guy, and Ian Schnorr, who's the founder of the Financial Modeling Institute. We just started chatting middle of last year, getting really frustrated with the hype and said, look, why don't we get together and just try all of these third-party tools we're seeing get so much attention. We'll share the recordings. We're not experts, but we're pretty good at modeling. See what happens. We spent all of our budget on the assets for the marketing. I just thought I'd show you a little bit of this. I was quite proud of this. It's great. That's Paul. If you don't know Paul, FP&A guy, worth a follow on LinkedIn. I think the rest of the video is me because it's my specific trailer that I put in this slide deck, so I won't bore you with the rest of that. Here's what we did. Over 12 episodes or so, I think we tested about 8 tools in the end. So they were all third-party tools, apart from, I would say, Microsoft's agent, which had just hit the web when we got to the end. It's still, for me, I don't think it's in my desktop, but it's coming. And the important thing for us was we're not AI pros. So we weren't coming up with the most, effective prompts in the world. But we did these things. We gave each tool a beginner and an intermediate esports case to try and solve. We gave it the same 3-statement modeling test that I just showed you. And we gave it some FP&A tasks like looking at deferred revenue, looking at a trial balance and doing some analysis. So we gave them the same tasks every time. And I think some of the highlights for me were Microsoft's Excel agent did impress me. I thought, bearing in mind it was on the web and I don't use Excel on the web, it did pretty well. It had a pretty good financial model. It balanced, it had some errors, but it did pretty well. Wasn't perfect, but I thought for a kind of first stab in the web, it was pretty good. The funniest tool, and I'm not knocking it because I think it was just like the luck of the draw when we used this. There was a tool called LCAR, which was actually really good. When we set it off on the Excel esports challenge, it just solved everything in like 40 seconds. I hadn't finished my first sentence after hitting go, where normally Ian and Paul and I talk for a few minutes, and it had finished. And we noticed that it had found that in the esports workbook, there's an answers tab that's usually hidden. It had found the answers tab and then just pointed to all the answers in the answers tab. So it just acted like a very junior, clever, but slightly cocky and lazy analyst, which we thought was really funny. The other thing it did was, financial modelers will hopefully find this amusing. It tried the 3-statement modeling challenge and it didn't have a balancing balance sheet. So we said, okay, we want you to solve that. But before you solve it, tell us why it doesn't balance, like show us the errors. And it came back really confidently and just went, yeah, I know why. It's because your assets do not equal your liabilities plus your equity. And we were like, oh, great. Okay, perfect. Thanks for that. It's really insightful. So, and then the last one that I always call out is Shortcut. So I think Shortcut did some very clever marketing last year. They went very viral with their marketing video, making some wild claims, which were definitely not true. And if you ignore the hype, it did okay. Like, it's quite an expensive product, depending on the license you buy. It did okay. It did some ridiculous things. One thing it did that I've never seen anyone do before was it reversed the signage, the formatting signage for numbers. So we had CapEx spend in our cash flow statement that you would expect to be negative. It custom formatted positive numbers with brackets and negative numbers without them. And we just looked at that and said that's just the most ridiculous thing for anyone to do. But it was okay. We tested other tools. So Tab AI, TrufflePig, Melda, Rosie. Rosie stopped, went out of business, essentially stopped operating. Another company stopped operating before we could test it, really around the time when agent mode in Excel hit the web, just because I think they knew that, once Microsoft and Anthropic hit this hard, they were going to be in trouble. Common issues we found, hard coding. So what you would just not expect a kind of trained modeler to do, we saw all the time with these tools. So hard-coded numbers throughout where you just would not want them. Signage errors, that was the weird one with Shortcut where it switched the signage. I think probably the most prevalent one throughout was using really complex formulas. So solving things, quite often getting the right answer, maybe not across the board, but doing it in a way that is just so hard to debug and just get your head around. Even as experienced modelers, we found it quite hard at times. And there were other issues, not balancing balance sheets and trying to claim that was fine, issues with circular references. And more, I think we just saw sometimes style over substance. Quite often you didn't even have the style. So last year was an interesting journey on that front. And I still think, I said this at some point last year, I still think it's a really dangerous phase at the moment with AI, because some of these tools are now producing outputs that look really good. But the moment you dig into the next layer of detail, it can be an absolute mess. So these things are only going to get better. This statement is probably always going to be true to some extent, but I think right now, because it's so new and things are just at that point where they can produce good looking outputs, it feels really, really dangerous to me. And I'll come back to this, but our job has to, in some way, pivot to being testers and auditors if we're going to use these tools effectively. Key conclusions from everything we did on the Mod Squad. No tool, as at the point that I wrote these slides, and maybe I'm pivoting a little bit more and more day by day with Claude, but no tool is ready to replace human expertise. I think that's definitely true across the entire life cycle. All the tools we tested failed in some respects. Nothing got things perfectly right, and I don't think that was a surprise. So we tried to think of them as augmentations, and if you use them the right way, I do now think they can be brilliant ones. Paul Barnhurst said something like this: these are accelerators. So if you're bad at the fundamentals, if your Excel skills, your modeling skills are pretty weak and you start using AI, they're probably going to make you worse. You might think they're making you better, but the risk of you doing something catastrophically wrong is going to increase. If you're really good at the fundamentals, if you can assess what AI tools are giving you as an output critically and quickly, then they can actually make you a lot better, I think, at the end. Marketing claims significantly overpromise. Maintain healthy skepticism. This is not going to stop. We see it on LinkedIn all the time. I've seen this from very prominent people on LinkedIn. You can hit a prompt, go grab a coffee, and you got a working model in 5 minutes. You know, what used to take me 4 weeks now takes me 5 minutes. Even for me, the idea that you should go and get a coffee whilst it's running, I don't like the idea of, because you actually get quite a lot of feedback from, a lot of these models as they're running. The landscape is rapidly evolving. So I expect significant improvements in 6 to 12 months. Even looking at it now with the start of this year, I'd probably drop that to 1 to 3. It's just moving so fast. We're all about to see how effective agent mode is in the desktop of Excel. If it's anything like Claude's own in Excel, I think it's going to really start, making people take notice. And I thought this was really interesting for me and Schnorr. Bearing in mind, he comes from a sort of investment banking background. He said quite pessimistically, but probably right, if anybody thinks that because AI is coming into their industry, that it's going to allow them to just go home at 1 o'clock on a Friday because there's no work, you might be really disappointed. And his argument was that there'll just be more work. The teams might be cut to counter AI, but we'll still be working. It'll just change. And the best practices that we take from this, I think, number one, never trust the outputs without review. That's absolute given. You must know the fundamentals. So whether it's financial modeling or something else, as I said earlier, I think this is an accelerator. If you're good at the fundamentals at the moment, it's going to make you better. If you're bad at the moment, it's probably going to cause you problems. Treat it as an assistant. I think one thing Microsoft did get right with Copilot is the name. In theory, it's a Copilot. You are still the pilot. You are in charge. This is something you can use to just sort of support you and give you feedback and add value in certain ways. Be really specific with the prompts. Again, I'm not a prompting expert, but giving as much context as you can when you are prompting, not just thinking that, it's like a mate that you're interacting with, does really help. But, what I showed you in Claude that I can go back to in a minute is they've got this concept of projects where I can give kind of built context within a project. So I've got a financial modeling consultant project area where it's got all of this context that I've given it, saying, I want you to act as an expert financial modeling consultant for me. I want you to be really pedantic with style and best practice. And it's got that context whenever I add a prompt or a chat within that project. And just budget for the time for checking and fixing things. Again, I'll keep coming back to that point. You can't just use the outputs without checking what it gives you. And then I started using Claude, and I try not to get carried away with hype. For anyone that kind of follows me on LinkedIn, I'm pretty allergic to hype on there. But I got as close as I've ever got to doing a hype post a few weeks ago, and I just said, it's actually good. Genuinely, I've not had any major frustrations with Claude. And I'm hoping when I turn back to the retests, the first time I get frustrated isn't going to be today. So let's have a look. See what we've got. Okay, so number one, let's download this and look at what we've got. Now, this won't be perfect. Let's go downloads. Download. See what we've got. Okay, it's not going to be perfect. I won't kind of go through the exact detail, but it's given me a pretty decent breakdown of everything that was on that whiteboard, including just notes that were kind of squiggled on, various parts of that model map. I think for 5-10 minutes, that's pretty good. Hopefully you can see the value that that could add. Anything that you do in a meeting, whether it's transcripts, notes on a board, you could take a picture, you could feed it into Claude or whatever and just say, right, summarize this. And then you can take it from there. Maybe it's 60% helpful already, and you can just do the last 40% yourself. Okay, test 2, we gave it a battle case. Now this is out of, interesting. So out of 1,250, it got almost a perfect score. So if we look through this was a one-shot prompt. We're looking for formulas here that lean on whatever we've got as data. So this first level was, take the first 2 characters from this word. It's used formulas. This looks really good. Level 2, much harder. Actually done a pretty good job of this. Sometimes it got that, it got the answer, but did it in a very strange way. You got to take the top 2 numbers from this single text string and add the top 2 together, basically. So it's done that pretty well. We go down. This is starting to look a bit messier. So to get to the column number from this, you could do that, but you could also just use indirect and column. But across the board, that's pretty good. That's how we would solve it as a human. Len minus len substitute of whatever the character is we're trying to count. It's done pretty well. I'm trying to find where's the answer that it actually got wrong. And maybe it's a bonus question. No, can't see it. Okay. I think that's pretty much a full score, but there were some areas where I think the actual approach, the formulas are maybe not what I would have done. And then finally, the 3-statement model. Oh, wow. Okay. So it's, okay, I'm just going to skim through. So for any financial modelers here, even for me, even the fact that it's built that in what looks like a pretty good structure, it set this up with separate inputs, formatted appropriately. I've got my 3 statements there. So it's done it in a sort of vertical approach. I'm assuming these are all the apps. So these are links back to individual schedules. The big test, as we all know, which is put in, is does the balance sheet balance? And the answer is yes. So I'm sure if I were to dig another layer down, there will be things that it's done there that I won't like, maybe even some kind of genuine logical errors. But of all the tools we tested on the mod squad but last year, no tool got an answer anywhere near as kind of strong as that. Okay, so we go back to my slides, which takes me back to where I started. So number 1, is AI ready to help? It depends what you're trying to do. Depends how you use it. And how can you use it? Lots and lots of different ways. And I would just, even though I've just showed you 2 examples of build, I would suggest people start to think beyond the build phase. And my group exercise, which I will leave this with you, okay? Based on anything that I've shared today or everything that I've been through, commit to something that you're going to try with AI in the next 48 hours that you've never tried before. Whether you use Claude, ChatGPT, maybe you're using one of the add-ins in Excel, just try it for something that you've never done before. And if you want to reach out and let me know how that goes, that'd be great. I think that's it, Ken. I have no idea how long I've been talking for or how long you wanted me to talk for, but here you go.
I say I give you an hour-ish. You're at 40 minutes. So come on, improvise something. Let's go. God, just kidding. So hey, Giles, as you're working through this, I'm a little curious on, so your Claude, you're using an add-in in Excel, Claude add-in in Excel for this. Do you want to show people where you got that? How do you install that? What do you have to do in order to hook that up?
Yeah, so you'll see it's annoying actually because some of these at the moment I can't remove. The show have been complaining about to companies. There's an add-in section here, so you can get lots of free add-ins, and Claude is just one of them here. We can maybe test this live, Ken, but I know that for agents,
Yeah,
you
I
can,
opened mine up this morning and I don't have agent mode anymore. So I don't, maybe they figured out on mine, but I don't have
actually,
Excel license for it. So,
well, I do. So I'm
um,
intrigued. When I tried this, yeah, you see, I'm still, unless I'm missing something, agent mode is now generally available on the web. I know it's rolling out, but I think in the UK and Europe, we're still waiting for something to come through. So I still can't use
yeah,
agent in desktop.
probably needs GDPR certification or something like that. I don't know. That's my guess.
Yeah.
But, um, so I'll, interestingly enough, I mean, I'll give you an experience. I mean, I had Copilot at one point in time with agent mode. So I actually built a rather complex break-even analysis that I did myself manually, and then decided, you know what, I'm going to go back and I'm going to try this with agent mode and see what happens. So I gave it a fairly detailed prompt and clicked go and went to walk and get a coffee, as you say not to do, but I did it anyway. And I came back because I need caffeine to understand what's going on. At the end of the day, this thing ran for, I think it was about 13 minutes. It was a fairly long one, and it ended up kicking out a break even that got to 99.9% of the correct answer. It had one place where it hard coded something in a table and then overwrote the formula with its next formula in the table, because the table, of course, likes to use the same formula. So besides that, it's just a technical error that they will, I'm sure, fix. But what was really interesting on the thing is that at the top of the worksheet, of course, it merged a cell. So the first thing I'm looking at is I'm like, hey, you know what? The output of this is actually really good. I was really, really impressed with it, but I'm going to speak to why that is in just a second. But then I said, can we please not merge the cell at the top of the table? Can you center across selection set? And I hit enter. 5 minutes it took to do that job. And I went, wow, this is crazy. And I think this is one of the really interesting things. And I sort of fed some of this back to Microsoft, is that it concerns me a lot when you look at this kind of stuff and you say, it takes literally 2 seconds to do that job if you know what you're doing with this. And what horrifies me about this is knowing that, in that process of that query, 5 minutes, this thing was burning away, using energy, using water for cooling, impacting the environment, all the rest of it, just because I got in the habit of typing a paragraph to do something that I could do through the user interface really quickly. And I think this is going to be a real big danger for a lot of people. And, sort of leads me to agree with Ian in a lot of cases, maybe for different reasons, that this isn't necessarily going to make us faster, because we're going to become used to having conversations with something where we could actually train ourselves to do things a little bit quicker. But the other thing that I thought was interesting about why I feel the AI actually came back and gave me an answer that was so close to what I had, and you alluded to this in your presentation as well, is the context of the question. I had already designed it and I knew exactly what I wanted it to do, and I gave it very explicit instructions. And I think, and give me an idea whether you agree with this or not, but I feel that this is a part that a lot of people that work with AI don't do, is sit down and say, I'm going to use this tool to plan what I am going to build, rather than go build me a model that looks like this. And if we don't give it good instructions, it infers them and it does whatever the heck it thinks it does. But that's not where the main value comes in for, I think, a lot of the stuff. Is we should be using it more to plan what we're going to build than actually do the execution in the first place. What do
Yeah,
you think? Is that?
I totally agree. I mean, that's probably one of the areas that I use AI more so than anything else broadly in my life. But anyway, it's almost that kind of ideas brainstorming of things, like various ways you can approach things. For anyone that doesn't know, I'm about to travel around the world with Faye, who's on the call. So Faye's like more into this than I am, into the weeds of, like, actually, if you take something like Copilot, which I just criticize all the time and must stop, how can you actually use it effectively in teams to do things? And Faye, maybe I should let you say this stuff, but a lot of it is like breaking down, what do you actually do? Like, what do you do with your day? Where, like, identify the areas within a work stream where it can add value. And I think, like, the start of projects or before you do things, brainstorming is a great one.
fair enough. Cool. If anybody's got any questions, I see, Daniel, you've thrown a link into the chat about an essay on how to use AI well. I'll read that after the thing is done here. But if anybody's got any questions or comments or whatnot to throw in, please do throw them into the chat.
Yeah, I didn't look at the chat while I was going through. It looks like you've covered all the questions, which is great.
Scott suggested, how about using AI as an idea generation tool rather than a solution generation tool? Things like formatting, layout, purely visual things. And I mean, this is where I think we're in agreement on this, right? I think that it probably has a lot of strengths for doing things like, hey, look, I'm going to be starting into this project. I need to try and work through these things and try and figure out the approach to take. Is a good place to sort of, do your testing on things. But, a pure execution of add a conditional formatting rule to this, I don't think is where the strength is going to be. I think it's going to go way slower than what you could actually do it in person. If you know where the click paths are, that's the thing, right? So obviously the more we learn, the more that's going to help. Having said that, I'm also going to say, because I can see Deepak on the call here. I mean, I know one of the conversations we had in one of the Ask Anything sessions, there's been multiple times where people have tried to use ChatGPT to design a proper data model, and the response that we've got back is anything but proper. So, you look at it and you go, there's, it's not going to be perfect either. So it's just interesting. Yeah. But I think this is where we need the human in the middle to actually go back and to actually review these things and look at it and test it and see, does it seem reasonable or not? But yeah.
And I'd be intrigued if anybody like in the session has got value from it. So especially if anybody's using Copilot effectively, because I don't hear many people talk positively about it. And I'm sure other than Faye.
Faye's here. Come on, Faye.
I think my experience of using it is if you are knowledgeable about what you're trying to do, you have a number of years experience doing what you're trying to do, AI can supercharge what you're doing, right? You can use it really effectively to help you do your work faster in a lot of cases, and to help you with ideas to get to the end point with a lot less stress. If you don't have a solid understanding in the thing that you're trying to use AI for, that's where I think it's more frustrating, because to really understand the output and review it and, improve it and get to where you need to get to, I think that's really hard. And what's frustrating is people are saying things like, you don't need to be able to model anymore. You don't need to be able to code anymore. And this just the opposite is true. Like, I think you need to know these skills more than ever to be able to elevate what you can do with AI. Like, if you don't know that stuff, it's so frustrating. So yeah, that's my view.
I definitely have a mental cutoff. The moment I consciously realize I could have done this faster myself, mentally I'm out, and that's what I was saying about Claude. I sound like I should probably be paid by Anthropic at the moment, but I haven't had one of those moments yet with Claude as an add-in in Excel, which I had with Copilot. And it's not just Copilot, but just ChatGPT and whatever. I have them all the time where you go, Ken, I don't know if you saw, I whinged to the whole MVP email chain about PowerPoint 3 weeks ago, because it was driving me nuts in PowerPoint that it couldn't do what I thought was a simple thing. Now, that was probably partly my understanding of the capabilities on the agent side of Copilot and PowerPoint. But it's so frustrating when you just think, God, I've just wasted 10 minutes of my life, and I could have done that in 30 seconds.
I might have seen that. Might have felt your pain. But so there's a comment in the chat from Peter Linden. So without the subject matter expertise, it doesn't really help. So I'm going to throw out a counterpoint to that. I mean, I think that's, as a trainer in particular, I think the subject matter expertise is more important than ever, because you need to be able to validate the outputs of what's going on, and you can't figure out actually how to talk to it properly unless you have that subject matter expertise to begin with. However, I also think that it actually allows people who don't have the subject matter expertise to rapidly go down and start building solutions. And we see movements all over the place with this, with vibe coding, vibe modeling, I hate the term vibe today. Absolutely hate it. Because what vibe means to me is that we've now got somebody who is exploring an area where they actually don't know the bigger ramifications of what they're creating and the potential problems that they're causing. And if we ever see anybody vibe coding security on firewalls, I think you can understand where that's going to become a major problem, because they can't actually validate, is this truly actually safe, right? Vibe coding a website is going to leave yourself completely vulnerable to hacking. Vibe coding a financial model is going to leave you vulnerable to a financial model that isn't going to be stable and whatnot. And I think that's a scary thing. So I agree. And I think, Faye, this is essentially what you said here is that, I mean, if you've got the skills, it can rapidly advance you. However, if you don't have the skills, it can rapidly help you build something that you don't understand. And I see a lot of jobs for consultants coming out in the future to unscrew up a solution that has been built by AI. I mean, is the reality of where I think we're going with this. Henry is asking, how do you see the trajectory going forward on financial models where accuracy and precision is non-negotiable, or precision is non-negotiable? Communication with the clients required for populating inputs, a huge part of the build audit process. What's known, what's not known as a strict barriers, or potentially a ceiling coming from this plus non-determinism. It's a big question, Harry. When it comes to implementation of financial models, many free dimensions on both the input and output side.
Yeah. So I would, Harry obviously knows Hilary Smart very well at Opera's, one of the best, I think probably most highly respected financial modelers in the world. And she's sharing awesome stuff like insights on LinkedIn. Again, definitely worth a follow. And I remember her saying in one of her posts that it depends on the model. Like there are different types of model. You've got models that are kind of the bone of a project finance transaction where a bridge is going to be built or something. Is that will actually 0.5% of an error is probably a little bit worrying. Even that range for a big project like that. So, but then there are also just small models that are immaterial, and I guess it depends on the model. The fact that it's not deterministic and you could have exactly the same prompt and think you've got to a stage where an AI tool is reliable and then that one time it gets it slightly wrong. I mean, it's just not acceptable, which is why you have teams and companies and auditors making large sums of money and being paid lots of money to not get that wrong. So yeah, project finance world, I can't imagine it's going to be doing the building yet. But also, I do kind of think, who knows, maybe in a year's time, it'll just be so good that it can do everything.
I'm not convinced. I mean, just because I think one of the things that is the underlying state of the way an LLM is built is it is built for a non-deterministic result, right? The entire thing is it's trained on documents. It's trained on conversations. It's trained on things where every time you would ask that question, you would want it to respond slightly differently to actually give it a human factor to say that I'm not just reading a script over and over again with the same things. The problem that I see in finance is that finance requires deterministic answers. When we ask for 1 + 1, it better come out as 2. If it comes out as 2.1 because somebody had a floating point rounding going on inside, that's not acceptable. And I think that that's so I can see in some of the cases of modeling where you're doing this that yes, you could come up with a different formula that gets you to the same result. That's totally cool. But if it comes up with a different formula and the balance sheet doesn't balance, this is not cool, right? So, I mean, this is one of those things that I still feel in a lot of cases that AI, particularly in finance, is probably better built with the design of the model rather than just go and populate the model. Again, maybe that'll change, Giles. I don't know, but.
Well, I mean, I try and play devil's advocate with myself a little bit because, I probably have a natural bias and defensiveness to anybody suggesting that financial modelers shouldn't exist in the future because that, affects me. But like to try and be neutral about it, where I could see it adding value is imagine you're you want to start a new business. You're like a young entrepreneur. You've got an idea and you've been told by somebody, well, you need to have a forecast to get a loan from a bank or whatever. What would you do now? Well, you'd probably go online and you Google it and you try and hire a consultant. Maybe you've got very little money or no money. I could see it being helpful even now where you could use something like Claude and go, look, build me a 13-week cash flow template. Tell me how to use it. Build me a really basic kind of valuations model of some sort. And I think it wouldn't be 100% perfect, but it might be good enough to help somebody in that situation get to a conversation with a bank where they go, okay, well, that's better than no model. So maybe there are situations where it adds some value like that.
Oh, and that's fair. Question or a comment from Paul says, I think the reason that people are not successful as they're using AI is they don't understand writing the prompts. I've been in meetings where the person trying to use AI to speed things up generates crazy results because of bad prompting. They assume the AI understands a lot or more than it does or has more skill. Again, I agree with that to a degree as well. But I think this also goes back to if you don't provide enough context in your prompt, unfortunately, in a lot of cases, AI doesn't come back and say, hey, I think we need to understand a little bit more about this, like a consultant would. It goes, right, I'll start building it. I mean, I don't know about you, Giles. I've had this before where I'm like, I am going to give you a list of instructions. Please do not do anything until I actually tell you to do this. And then you hit enter and it says, great. And it starts building something. And you're like, do I not speak English? Right? Like it's very frustrating in those regards. So I think that, to the comment of creating the prompt, I mean, this is one of those areas where you do have to be careful to, yes, firmly think out the process of what is it that I want, describe it in a clear and concise way. But again, the engine is interpreting your language, your wording and whatnot. And if you stop it and try it again, you're going to get a different result in many cases on these, right? So interesting on those ones. So Daniel says, I've definitely had the experience with Claude where it was easier for me to write the formula and have Claude figured out for me. Usually it's doing really weird things with array formulas. That's fair. I've had the opposite where it's easier to ask AI to generate you a complex formula than it is to write it yourself too, right? So it goes both directions on those. So
to answer Seth's questions, Seth says, anyone tried to give a model sub-components like an AR roll forward, given 6 months of accounts receivable. Yeah, we did something similar to that last year with the mod squad. We're more on the third-party tools, and they did okay. Dates seem to not sit very well sometimes with these tools in Excel. I suspect something like Claude or agent mode would perform better this year. But yeah, we tried it. I mean, project finance modeling to me is kind of the peak of the hierarchy of complexity and difficulty. I also think in kind of broader finance terms, building a really good actuals plus forecast rolling model where you've got 3 statements as an output that you've got to kind of align actuals data and your forecasting drivers, and it can roll forward and all this stuff. That's really hard. Like for humans, I think that's also one of the hardest models to build well. I haven't seen anybody try that yet. I haven't tried it myself, but I suspect it would struggle to do that.
I need to try to see if it can actually build the statement of cash flows where we add back our amortization into non-cash items and things like that, because I know that screws up accounting students everywhere in the world. I mean, was a joke with that. That's the financial statement we used to fail accounting students, but be interesting to know if the AI engine would actually solve that one properly or not. So
I mean, just conscious there's only a few minutes, but if you look at, I didn't go into this in detail. If you look at what it did on the cash flow statement, it is pulling through the bottom of the income statement, adding back the depreciation, deferred taxes, adding back change in working capital. So everything at a glance looks correct here. All the signage is right, paying off the principal of debt as you go through. I mean, it looks pretty good. I did ask it in the prompt to put a check in, but I think the fact that it even gets the structure right and it looks
good.
And it
is the check a formula?
Good check. Yeah.
Okay, good.
That I feel yeah, it is.
Could you imagine? No, it just says okay on everyone is a hard-coded value.
Yeah.
Anyhow. So, all right. So we got a comment from Scott, non-Excel related. AI is changing other areas just as quickly. Check out a YouTube short called Beggars Canyon. It's a Star Wars fan film created through AI by one person's hobby in less than a month. While not without flaws, there's moments that are amazing, and this is still in relative infancy. Oh man, I got to tell you, I have big feelings about generating images and videos with AI. I feel more strongly about that than I do about generating financial formulas. And the thought of somebody generating funny cat videos with AI just absolutely sends me, because I think there's enough cats out there that do funny things without the need to go and burn down our environment to make videos of them on our own. But yeah, it's interesting. Sorry, big feelings.
I get it. Thomas asked about I don't think, I'm just trying to look, revolver. No, the revolver just uses a beginning balance, so it's not built a circularity into the bottle.
Seth was asking Hillary. What was her last name that you'd mentioned Hillary earlier?
Hilary Smart, so she's very senior at Operis. Operis is, one of the most respected modeling institutions in the world. Harry's here. Harry's at Operis. So yeah, she knows what she's talking about.
Perfect. All right. Any other thoughts? Thomas has asked about circularity. I mean, I guess sometimes you see it come in, sometimes you don't. I mean, hopefully.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. So I think Thomas might have been referring to, like, did the model that it built for me,
right.
did it build a circularity? I don't think it did. It looks like for the revolver, it's opening balance. So it looks fine. Some people love circularities. Half of the investment banking world think they're great. I don't know why.
Yeah. It's not the way I like to do things either. So there you go. Awesome. Well, I think that looks like that's run the rest of the questions out on this one for right now. So I think we'll end up wrapping up for today. But Giles, thanks for coming. It's been fantastic having you on here. Great presentation. Always enjoy the banter back and forth with this stuff after the fact as well. Faye, thanks for being called in and participating on this as well, and everybody else that gave us the questions. Great stuff. So don't forget, folks, that the meetup recording will get posted in the next 24 hours or so. And we do have a couple of great meetups coming up with Christian Engel and who was our other one that we had coming up later on? And Walsh, that's right, yes, that are coming up the next month. So the RSVPs are up for those. Don't forget to sign up. And we'll see you again, hopefully in a couple of weeks. So till next time, folks. Giles, I'll see you in May in person. Faye as well. So yeah, there you go. Awesome. Have a good one, folks.
Thank you.
See you. Bye-bye.